Hi, this is Mrs. Ruscio, and you're watching Graphing Functions Day 3 Notes. Basically, in this video, we're just going to extend and expand our knowledge on graphing functions. And we might have to change around the window and get a little creative, but we're going to use our graph as clues. So let's dive right in. Example number 1 wants us to graph this function. Remember, if it says, do you want to save, you just say no. So let's add a graph, and let's type in negative 16x squared plus 64x plus 80. Okay, so when I look at this graph, it looks kind of weird, like two straight lines, but we're going to use our graph clues to help us. I can see that my graph is only graphed on the y's from 0 to 160 and the x's from 0 to 6. We also have this piece here that says over the domain, over the x values, from 0 to 5. So in my table of values, I'm going to use that to help me. So when I make my table of values, my x's are only going to go from 0 to 5. And we're going to use our calculators to help us. So the first thing is I'm going to wiggle my mouse here, and I'm going to double click this number over here. This 10 only needs to be a 6 according to my graph. So I'm going to tab, and that's supposed to be a 0, but I'm going to make it a -2 just to give me a little wiggle room. Tab again. That also I'll make -2 just to give me a little room because there's nothing over there. And then that 6.67 has to be 160. Now we're done, and we'll hit enter, and voila. Now we can see that it's actually a parabola because of that x squared. Control T to get the table of values. Let's fill in our table. So 0, 80, 1, 128, 128, 2, 144, 3, 128, 40, 80, and 5, 0. Let's go ahead and plot our points now. 0, 80, and 480. 5 was at 0, and 1 was at 128, and so was 3, and 2 was 144. So that's about here. Oops, no, it's not. 2 is right. Oh, I see what I did here. This should be 3. I was off by 1. There we go. 2, 144 is about here. So we're going to connect these with a nice pretty curve. Label it h of x. Notice how I didn't put arrows on the ends of this because the domain is only from 0 to 5. All right, number 2, let's graph this one. So this one looks a little interesting because we have some fractions, but that doesn't scare us. So Control Doc adds a new page. We're going to add a graph, and that's negative. Control Divide 1 over 100. And remember, our calculator only understands x's and not t's, so we have to convert it for it. And then 3/5 x. And then hit enter. And again, notice how our graph says over the domain from 0 to 60. Our domain goes from -10 to 10. So wiggle your mouse, and let's change that to 70. And then if we hit tab, we can now see it's forming a parabola. I could leave that. I could make it a different number, but I really see that my parabola is cut off, so maybe I want to make that 10 and hit enter. Beautiful. All right, Control T is going to show my table. Notice how my x values have to start at 0 and end at 60, but I have a bunch of gross decimals in here. So when I'm writing out my table of values, I'm going to skip over some points because I don't know about you, but I do not want to list out points from 0 to 60 in all of them. That's a lot of points. So let's use some integer points. Ooh, there's one, 10, 5. And let's just find integer points as we go down. 28, 39, so 28, 39, that's an 8. That does not look like an 8, but that's okay. We'll keep going. 48, 55, and 60, 0. All right, so let's put those last ones in there. 48, 55, and 60, 0. So that's an 8. I'm just going to make it look more like an 8. All right. We need to pick our scale here to make our graph fit. So this is a change that we haven't talked about yet. So we have to have our x values go all the way to 60. So if I count by 5s and make every other one of these 10, that'll work. My y values, it's not as big of a deal because they just have to go up to 9, and I'll be able to make them all work. So let's start plotting. 0, 0, and it was 60, 0. And then 10, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then also 55, and then 28, and also 38, and then 49. This is P of t, so I'm going to label him now and connect with my curve. And there you have it.